So I'll share my slides with you. Here we go. Hi, my name is Vesna. I'm a community builder for RIPE Atlas, so I will talk about the work that my colleague wrote. So if you have a lot of questions, then we can pass them on to him later. I will try to share my screen again. Here I have to click once more and then show the slides. And yeah, now it's working great. So the very interesting use case that a lot of people were asking for was how can you measure the reachability and the latency towards your website? And one possibility is to introduce HTTP measurements. However, from the beginning, when the RIPE Atlas was created, that was not part of the original design, because the goal of the RIPE Atlas was to measure the network layer and the transport layer, and most of the users of RIPE Atlas, the network operators that are members of the RIPE NCC, they are happy enough with the ping and traceroute and DNS measurements. However, we were getting more and more users as the network was growing, and for a lot of them, the web layer, the application layer, is very important. So they wanted us to actually introduce the HTTP measurements. And so they're technically possible in the RIPE Atlas. And then we had a discussion with the community. What kind of consequences would it bring if we would actually allow all the RIPE Atlas users to schedule a measurement from all the random probes in other people's homes towards random websites? And for the ethical reasons, we decided not to go that way. The ethical reasons being some of these websites may be forbidden in a certain country. And we at the RIPE NCC don't have any possibility to actually keep track of what are the allowed websites and what are the forbidden websites. And since the RIPE Atlas enables people from, let's say, Brazil to schedule a measurement from the probes in Italy, they would also not be aware, the Brazilian users of RIPE Atlas wouldn't be aware of what are the forbidden websites in Italy. So we didn't want to bring those hosts into any trouble. Also because some of those hosts have cats, and we didn't want any cats to get into trouble either. So going back to the previous slide, as I said, HTTP measurements in RIPE Atlas are technically possible. However, we allow them only towards the targets that we actually control, and that are RIPE Atlas anchors. So the anchor is running a small web server, and there are some files there that can be downloaded using the HTTP measurements from all the RIPE Atlas probes. However, a lot of people still want to measure towards their own web server. And so we looked into the other possibilities. Like we always tell people, oh, well, you can just do the ping. But that wasn't enough. So we actually looked into the so-called TCP ping, which curiously enough is actually a traceroute. And so René did a lot of measurements to compare and to see, is it feasible to use this kind of measurement instead of HTTP? And actually it is, it works. So first I will explain how to do it, and later I will explain a little bit more technical and scientific details, like why is that the case, that you can replace one of these measurements with the other one. So if you want to measure reachability of your website, first of all, you can't use the name of the website. So you have to find out the IP address. And so then you schedule the TCP measurement towards the IP address of that website, and you go to the port 80, where the web server is listening. This traceroute will send 3 packets, and you have to manually make the size of the packet to 0. Then you also have to make a very long time to live. So René is recommending 64 for, again, very detailed technical reasons. And there is another thing that you have to specify, and that is maximum hops, and that should also be 64. So this emulates the behavior of the TCP handshake that happens when the HTTP connection is being established. And so using this kind of trace route, you can measure the similar delay that you would get if you would actually do the HTTP measurement. And so there are several ways to schedule the measurement. One of them is using the web interface. So you just go to atlas.ripe.net, measurements, start a new measurement, and there's a lot of advanced options, as I already wrote on that slide, that you have to choose. And then you either say, okay, this is a one-off measurement, or you say, I want this to happen every day at 10 a.m. So that's how it works. Now, my more preferred way to do the RIPE Atlas measurements is using command line interface. However, the standard version of the RIPE Atlas command line tools actually cannot do this exact thing because you can't set up the size to 0. So then you just set up the size to 1, and it's going to be more or less okay. So we are going to rewrite the CLI tools to actually accept the packet size of 0, or you can do that because this is the open source tools. They are on GitHub. So if you want to modify this and fix it, just make a pull request and we are going to accept it. And I will also use this opportunity to promote the command line tools because I think they're really cool. So now let's say you have scheduled that measurement. I did it in preparation for this webinar, and I will not show you the demo, so I made some screenshots. So in the results, you get a map, and on that map, you can see the reachability, so geographically, so it's kind of visualization, and you can also see the latency to your website from all these probes that are involved in the measurement because they are color-coded according to the latency. There is a different view which gives you just a list of all the probes and their details, AS numbers, and so on. And if you don't like our visualizations or you want to somehow analyze the data yourself, you can download it and do it on your own site. Of course, there are all these other visualizations that were presented previously by my colleagues. And for those of you which are scientifically minded, this is some of the detailed technical information which kind of proves why is it possible to use the trace route with all these specific details instead of HTTP measurement. And the error margin is really, really small. So if the round trip time would be around 100 milliseconds, then the difference between those two measurements would be in the area of 5 to 15 milliseconds. And for measuring the network performance, that is usually acceptable. So we just wrote this. And of course, this was possible before. So anybody who actually knows how to do this trick was able to do this 5 years ago with the beginning of the RIPE Atlas. But now it's actually clear to also non-technical users, how can you do that? And we are still curious about, do you find this useful? And how many people would be using this? Because if you would use it, we would develop other ways to do it so that you don't have to fiddle with all these things yourself. So what would be your use case? We would really love to hear from you. And if a lot of people want it, we could make just like a little web form where you type in your IP address, click go, and then all these other settings are actually happening in the background. If you know how to do command line, then you can make your own alias and then you're done with it. If you want to use it for monitoring, you have to watch the other webcasts that Massimo and Chris just did, because you can actually monitor your web server latency and see like if it goes up or down and then get alerted. So if you do all this and you're happy and you want to tell us about it, or you want to tell the whole community about it, you can write on RIPE Labs, and then a lot of people are going to be able to read about that. So here are some links on how you can reach us. How am I doing with time?
Good. Go on if you want.
Oh, she's Oh. Okay, so I'm done. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Vesna? No, we didn't see any on the chat. I have one question, and I think you might know the answer because we talked about it before. Now, why is this trace route called TCP ping and not TCP trace route?
Oh, so yeah, I was also curious about that. And so it is a trace route, but it's not like a normal trace route where you would actually get the answer from all the hosts data, all the routers that are in between along this path, along this trace, because you set up the initial time to live to very high, and then your packets immediately reach the end host. So then it's kind of a ping, but because with the ping you would use ICMP, and then some of the firewalls or whatever would not let the ICMP packet hit the web server. With this trace route, you can set up the type to be TCP. So then the web server thinks, oh, it's just kind of a regular HTTP connection, and then it allows it. And so that's why we can then emulate the HTTP connection using the trace route.
Interesting. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you very much. No question. There are some comments, and people are talking about ping, or they have disabled ping or not, and so. But I don't think there are any questions. And I believe the next session is already set up. We're a little early. I don't know if you want to move over, or maybe have a cut here, have a break. Please fill in the survey at the bottom of the page. And so we know what you think about the session. And please don't hesitate to contact us on the labs@ripe.net also if you have any use cases on Atlas. And we'll be happy to help you write the articles. Bye-bye.